Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day? Ain't it a great day?
Hello everyone, my name's Dean. Let's talk crypto. This is where you subscribe for daily Bitcoin updates and technical analysis. We track the price of Bitcoin as a proxy for the cryptocurrency markets at large. Today is October 23rd, 2025. And this is very much likely the disbelief rally, but not in Bitcoin. This is extremely important. A lot of people are absolutely confused as to where we are in the market cycle. There are many market cycles. Please get that in your minds. There isn't one market cycle for all cryptocurrency assets, for any asset traded on any open market, right? There are many. There are as many cycles as there are assets. And yes, some cycles do follow one another quite closely. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about why this is the disbelief rally, but not for Bitcoin. Then what? I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Bitcoin, where it's at, what it's likely doing. And I want to talk about sentiment. We're going to look at the sentiment indicator, the fear and greed index. If all that sounds interesting to you, then watch until the very end. Hope everyone's having a great day. Let's get into it. Let's start with Bitcoin today. Okay, yesterday I did the analysis. It was a bit long-winded, but essentially, while recording, I came to the conclusion, to the best of my ability, to the best of my analytical ability, I determined that Bitcoin is currently in this correction right here, this yellow correction, this B wave, okay? And this yellow correction is the middle of this larger teal correction, okay? So you see this teal correction, A, B, C. We're in the middle of it. We're in the B wave of it. Okay, if the A wave goes up, the C wave goes up, then the B wave in total goes down, right? This is one way I keep things straight, like just general directions. So that middle goes down. It's comprised of 1, 2, 3 parts, just like any corrective pattern. Then I'm in the middle right here, A, B, still going up here. I'm waiting for this, for then to say my middle B wave is complete. That's the easiest way I can explain it, right? And the premise of all of this is the idea that all corrective patterns happen in flavors of 3. You can backtest that. You can check that on your own. But this is a principle of Elliott wave corrective dynamics. And that those B waves tend to be complex corrections. As you can see here, you have A, B, C likely, and even the B wave of the B wave seems really messy, right? Look at this. Boom, boom. What is that? That's a B wave. Every time you can say, what is that? This seems like manipulation. It's crazy. I don't know where it's going. If you can count 3 waves, it's a B wave. Even if you can't count 3 waves, chances are it's a B wave. So I see this as being something like this. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with. I still have Bitcoin coming to this area around 116 before heading back down to 104 and then back up again to 116 before then completing this entire correction, which completes this, the midpoint of this zigzag, and takes us down. Because essentially, however you want to slice it, you can just look at this in terms of a channel, right? You're in channeled price action, corrective price action. Another way to look at it is just to say Bitcoin's hanging out and consolidating. And you can say that consolidation is a distribution or redistribution, but it's consolidating. It's pretty much going up and down as people are trying to decide, well, is this the beginning of much higher, Or is this the beginning of much lower? That's essentially what this price action comes down to. This is why Bitcoin's moving up and down. Market participants are really trying to decide whether to buy or sell Bitcoin at these levels. And they're deciding, should we buy for much higher or should we sell for much lower? Okay, and we understand based off of our higher time frame price action with a very high degree of probability, this is a distribution, i.e., you're preparing for a much lower move with a very high degree of probability. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? You're just looking at all of the data. You know, you can look at the technical analysis, you can look at the on-chain data, you can look at, you know, all kinds of things, the liquidity, right, on-chain. You can look at CME gas. There's so many things telling you this is a local market top in Bitcoin's chart, in Bitcoin's market. Now, still, even though I'm telling you, some guy on YouTube with a high degree of probability on the high time frames, it's very likely, and I have no doubts that Bitcoin is preparing to move to the downside. Two things. I'm one telling you this, yet and still, many people are under the impression that this is going to be a preparation. What you're seeing right here on Bitcoin small time frame is a preparation for a much higher move. Okay, a lot of people with a lot of money, you know, quote unquote serious analysts are telling you this may trigger a much larger move, and they're giving you their analysis. I can't disrespect that. If you substantiate your claims, no matter how nuts, with analysis, you show your work, you know, whatever. Everybody's wrong at some point in time. I can't hate on that. So this article is basically trying to tell you that right here, Bitcoin is reaccumulating or accumulating, preparing to go much higher. Okay, and I'm telling you that's absolutely nuts. That there's no way in hell. I'll bet my career on that. It's going down. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The second thing is, not only am I telling you that I feel like Bitcoin is going down much further, right? And we talked about my higher time frame, lower price targets for Bitcoin, where I think Bitcoin ultimately finds support before entering its bull market because it's currently in a bear market. I'm telling you, I'm extremely bullish on many altcoins. Okay, so I'm telling you two things that seem contradictory. One, Bitcoin's bearish and ending its bear market. I said that correctly, B-E-A-R, bear market. Two, I'm extremely bullish on altcoins. That doesn't make any sense, or does it? So I'm trying to tell you that altcoins are going to spearhead the rally in alt season. They're going to spearhead the cryptocurrency bull market that hasn't yet started. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I think that this article it's not a bad article, because even when wrong, you can learn something, especially when you show your work. When you don't show your work, it's hopeless. It's just a hot take. But, you know, if you want, go through this article and see where the analysis falls short. I don't have time to do that, nor do I think that's a useful exercise on this platform. But I think if this article is our altcoins disbelief phase about to trigger a short squeeze, then I would say 100%. This is where you should focus. And this is where a lot of people are going to be confused. As I stated in the beginning, in the teaser, it's not all one market. People think crypto, they think one market. It's one asset class, but one asset class with many different markets doing all kinds of different things, but at the same time. So it's a dance, but not everybody's in the same phase of the dance. So as things go up, generally everything goes up, but not in the same way. As things go down, generally everything goes down, but not in the same way. Understand that. Bitcoin sets the trend. Bitcoin goes up, everything goes up. Bitcoin goes down, everything goes down, but not in the same way. Very important. One asset class, many different markets. Bitcoin is in its own market, in its own market phase, market cycle, and it's a step behind most altcoins. As we've discussed, most altcoins are right here. They're at this stage, actually more specifically right here. They're at the bottom of their disbelief rally. Actually I would say right here, because June was the Pico bottom. Most altcoins, according to the others chart, are right about here. So they've been chopping sideways pretty much, and they're about to commence an impulsive rally that people think is going to fail. Okay, so that's where I think altcoins are at, generally speaking, and I think Bitcoin's around here. Do you see? So Bitcoin's around here. It's yet to make its capitulative bottom to complete its bear market, whereas altcoins have already done that. When I say altcoins, I'm saying altcoins in general. Again, remember, one asset class, many different market phases. This is why it's important to do analysis on each and every altcoin. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, you're bullish on altcoins? I'm going to go shopping and, I'm going to anticipate all of these altcoins doing exactly what Dean said, because we should be bullish on altcoins. His analysis makes sense. Be very careful. So generally speaking, based off of the others chart, most altcoins are around here. All right. That's, again, the psychology of the market cheat sheet and the disbelief rally, which I claim most altcoins are in now. I'll tell you specifically what that rally looks like, how high I think it goes, and the mentality behind it is what? The disbelief rally is called the disbelief rally because most traders think it will fail. Most people say, oh no, it's been a really tough market from, in the recent past, which is true. And this isn't going anywhere. This is going to fail just like everything else. So as soon as I get in profit, I'm taking my profits. Or I don't expect this to move much at all. And I'm not, as soon as I can get out of the market, I'm going to get out. That's the mentality behind the disbelief rally. And this is the mentality as it continues to climb against what most people feel should be happening, because most people don't understand market phases. They don't understand the simple fact that there's one asset class, but as many different market cycles as there are assets. So when we talk about this, an indicator like this, we're looking at the others chart. And again, remember, the others chart is basically an indicator. It's an indicator because you're taking all of the altcoins minus the top 10 in market cap in crypto. You're averaging and then normalizing all that data and putting it on one chart. So it doesn't represent all of the altcoins. It can't. But it represents a large sum. So generally speaking, when I say in looking at the psychology of the market, of a market cheat sheet, that altcoins are around here. They're not at the Pico bottom, but they've come out of the Pico bottom. I think the Pico bottom was June. They've come out of the Pico bottom. This right here is what I'm referring to. Whoops, wrong chart. This one is what I want to show you. So something like this right here. I don't know. This is tough. This is tough because it's not important. We don't have to, split hairs. Let's just say we're at the bottom, generally speaking, because this chart is a bit skewed in that the sideways accumulation looks like this. It's up and to the right rather than a flat one. And so when you're talking about Pico bottom, you can say it was 2023, but it wasn't really in most altcoins that I'm dealing with. But again, only takes a few big market cap altcoins to skew all of this data. Anyway, the point I want to make is that altcoins are based off of the others dominance, Bitcoin dominance, a lot of other indicators. They're not at the Pico bottom, but they're close to the Pico bottom, and they should effectuate this rally that we call the disbelief rally. They should be effectuating this disbelief rally. And I believe that this disbelief rally is going to be the first movement to the first logical resistance on this chart, which is up here around 50% to the upside. So I believe that this disbelief rally in altcoins shows on average about a 50% move, meaning that some of your altcoins do 60%, 70%, 80%, others do 30, 40%, something like that. Okay? That's what I'm seeing. And for the altcoins that are in the impulsive market phase, that are pure bullishness, this right here is an intra-wave correction, and it continues. It isn't something that, there are some altcoins that are still in corrective market phases, and this is something you should anticipate like this. A retest of these lows. Again, one asset class, many different market cycles, many different markets, okay? Certain markets are going to show this. Other markets are going to show this. Higher highs and higher lows. Okay, I think that's the first move that I would call the disbelief rally, and I would say this is the second move in the disbelief rally. Okay, I think both of these moves that I talked about yesterday and I'm talking about today happen before Bitcoin breaks the channel and goes down to 90K. Before. So you're going to likely get 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, this 1, 2, 3 happens before Bitcoin breaks 90K, and this, as Bitcoin goes to 90K, altcoins do that. That's what I'm seeing based off of my best analysis at this point in time. Okay, now let's talk, last but not least, actually, there's one more thing I want to talk about after this, but let's talk now about greed and fear, because I think when you talk about the confusion in the cryptocurrency space, I think underlying all of it is the idea, the notion that there's one market and one market cycle, and that idea in and of itself throws everything out the window. Nothing makes sense. For instance, look at this CMC Crypto Fear and Greed Index. Okay, so a greed and fear index, or a fear and greed index, is something that is commonly used in markets because, as we know, these different movements in price, they have psychological corollaries, right? The way you feel about a market, it usually has you either buying or selling. If you're fearful, you're going to sell. If you're greedy, you're going to buy. So the idea is, when people are fearful, when the market is fearful, you're usually talking about a local market bottom. When the market is greedy, you're usually talking about a local market top. If you look at the fear and greed index, we are in fear right now. We're at 28. Okay, that's fear. So for people who are saying, what are you talking about? Crypto or altcoins, generally speaking, are in a disbelief rally. We're in fear. Okay, this is called the crypto fear and greed index, not the Bitcoin fear and greed index, not the altcoin fear and greed index. It's confusing because it takes everything and mashes it all up together, whether it's one market or another market that maybe in different phases, doesn't matter, matches it all up together. This is why sometimes these kinds of indicators, they're not as useful as people think they are. Okay? Because you're conflating Bitcoin, which is at a local market top, or actually it's at a mid time frame top, high time frame top. We could say high time frame top, but a small time frame bottom, right? If you look on the really small time frames. Whereas most altcoins are at a really high time frame bottom and a low time frame bottom. So they are more likely in fear. And so if you look at this fear and greed index and you're like, oh, Bitcoin's bullish and it's going to 150, you would be right that it's bullish on the small time frames, but you'd be absolutely wrong on the higher time frames, because a lot of this data incorporates the fear most of the market has based off of what altcoins did on October 10th. That was a fearful or fear-inducing market move. And that wasn't because Bitcoin went down 10% or whatever, 13%. It was that a lot of altcoins went close to zero. They literally wicked down to zero. And so everybody soiled themselves. So it's appropriate that the market in general is in fear. Remember, the market is comprised of one Bitcoin and 99.99999% altcoins. So this, I think, fear and greed index is more indicative of what's happening in the altcoin space just by the numbers. So the fear and greed index in crypto, I think if you use it for altcoins, it's a little more useful. It makes a little more sense. And then this 28 fear index makes more sense. Then that tells you, okay, that equates to a bottom. I feel that I want to buy the bottom, and there's fear in buying the bottom, and that's exactly what I should feel at bottoms. And then we move up. The price moves up from the bottoms of fear to tops where people get greedy. Okay? The last thing I want to show you is this. When I talk about altcoins, alt season, all that stuff, it's not out of nowhere. Right here, this is the definitive chart. This is the definitive chart on how altcoins not only execute in alt season, but that we're going to get a big move in altcoins, right? This Bitcoin dominance chart is quite literally telling you altcoins are going to beat out Bitcoin. That's literally, it's telling you that. There's no if, ands, or buts. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And right now, you're looking at this rising wedge that's been going on for about 10 days. Remember, this in context is in a trend, counter trend, trend, rising wedge, counter trend. What do you think happens? This breaks down. That is your disbelief rally. That's your 50% pump on average in altcoins. That is altcoins beating out Bitcoin in market cap, and altcoins starting off cryptocurrency's bull market, and Bitcoin still kind of lagging because altcoins spearhead the 2025 cryptocurrency bull run. Guys, that's my analysis. Hope this was helpful, useful. Like, share, and subscribe if you got value. Consider joining my crypto portfolio mentorship and consultation service. You can sign up for that at the link in the pinned comment below. I basically help you identify which altcoins have bullish markets that are ready to take advantage of this cryptocurrency bull run, and that are going to initiate the bullish momentum in crypto, right? That's very important. And to determine that, we look at, high time frame analysis, and we determine with a high degree of probability whether or not certain assets are primed and ready to go. That's huge, all right? And we basically trade up to 5, and then once we finalize our 5, we track high probability resistance and support levels to snowball profits and build the portfolio exponentially. All right, so that's Crypto Portfolio Mentorship and Consultation Service. Again, you can sign up to that at the pinned comment below. Last but not least, I have a single asset analysis service where if you're interested on my take on just one asset, one crypto, one stock, one commodity, one indicator, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as there's a chart that's viable, I can read it and I can give my analysis on it. All you have to do is pay the fee, send me an email, and once I receive that, you will have your analysis pre-recorded, sent back to your inbox within 24 hours. So that is the single asset analysis service. Hope this is good for you all. Good luck. Hopefully the market is going to move to the upside and give us some excitement, some gains, and usher in this new cryptocurrency bull market of 2025 into 2026 and possibly even 2027. All right, take care. Bye.
Prevalent time slot, I vocalize too deep to localize. Even when I'm right on the surface, you act surprised how I work this, but I can't lie. Many a good alibi. I'll catch you later.
Visions are vividly enhanced with emphasis and amethyst to develop morale advantages which help us manifest magnanimous. We body vitals like evangelists. So listen when you're dealing with people who be revealing premonitions with precision. At least that's what I'm aiming at for now. I speak the language of the world, meandering throughout the crowd. Used to feel safe to say anything, but now it's a risk. It's hard for me to let go when all I can do is reminisce. Gone like the wind, here's where I begin. Should I smile or should I grin?